Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Chris, for having me at Readers Book Club. I, um, why did I write this book? I'm gonna get right down to it because I think Ken's introduction was um, spot on. I wrote this book, I would have written this book anyway, for my son. I write a lot, and I always have. I keep a journal. I remember when I was in college in Barbados at UWI, my sister was in New York studying at Baruch. We wrote each other every single day. This was pre-internet. This was 93 through 95. And I looked forward to Mondays particularly because I would get like maybe 2 or 3 letters from D on a Monday or Tuesday. And I knew when I was carrying my son, before the rest of the world knew, that I would write to him. Like all mothers to be, I was very, very excited and very ready for motherhood. And I wanted to share my journey with my child. The book was my manager's idea actually. Tyrone said to me, he was the third person I told I was carrying Ailan, and I begged my mom to forgive me for that. My love, that's great, you have to write a book. And you call it Letters to Your Child. And I was like, yeah, Ty, whatever. But I did keep a journal at that time, and I said, you know what, Ty is onto something here. And at the time I started writing to Ailan, as opposed to just keeping a journal, I had no idea how our story would unfold. And it is a beautiful story. It is, I think, but I'm sure most moms, correct me if I'm wrong, moms here, feel that way about their children. It's also a time in my life when I experienced some of my greatest challenges. But the most peace and joy I have ever had. My determination to make sure that my child started on the best footing imaginable. You read about, hopefully, started from the minute Dr. Withers told me that I was carrying Ailan. And the story really is a mother's singular determination to make sure that her child is okay, and better than okay, and that he one-ups my experience as a young West Indian. And once Dr. Withers told me he was a boy, well then I really got cooking. And why? Because I've said this repeatedly over the years, and as a young, not so young anymore, West Indian woman, I often lamented the way in which we raise our boys. I hear it all the time, I see it, I read it in our newspapers throughout the region. We are leaving our boys behind. You look at the students graduating from the University of the West Indies, for example, or UTT, in every single discipline, even engineering now, the women outnumber the boys by at least 3 to 1, often way more. In my first year at the University of the West Indies, of a class of 40 young LLB students, there were 8 male students of 40 Trinidadians. And I like boys, and I like men a lot. And I don't want to leave our guys behind. I don't feel good if I sit in a class necessarily where there are women really outnumber our men, and we are excelling to the extent where we are leaving our guys behind. As a woman, I appreciate the struggle we've had to achieve and to attain equality, but equality for me does not mean doing a bad version of a man. Equality for me means celebrating all that is absolutely wonderful about woman, and about being woman and being respected for that. And my story with Ailan. I've had tremendous lessons through this journey in terms of how we as women relate to our menfolk and our menfolk relate to us. There's a saying that I've heard all my life here, which grates on my last nerve, similar to when I hear chalk um, on a blackboard. uh, I Lego my cock, you hold your hen. That really, really irritates me because we are all hens. Many of the women I've heard over the years, and it's primarily been women, saying that are women. And we tend to raise the young men we don't want. Why would you unleash on society a man that you wouldn't want for yourself? If you know what I mean, as a woman. So I deal with many, many things in this book. I tackle my own views of religion, and it's of the way in which men and women relate to each other, and most importantly, the way in which we raise our men. 70% of our households are single parent households. The vast majority of those are women raising young kids. So if our men are failing, it is to a large extent because we are, as women are failing them. Sometimes through the example we give, largely through what we see. And this, as I said, it's a very personal journey. I open up about my private life in a way in which I have never done before. I think clearly exhibited by the way in which Trinidad and Tobago reacted to my pregnancy in the first place. You know, I wasn't like many other well-known Trinis who were photographed with girlfriends or boyfriends. I went from almost asexual to, what is this? You know, we know it's not an immaculate conception. So for me to tell this story, not only to Ailan, but to the world, I had to be very honest, very straightforward. I hope Ken has assured me that the patrons of this particular bookstore would get it, and I hope you really do. Beyond the ooh and the ah, it is a story of a mother trying to raise a healthy, well-rounded West Indian meal. And I hope that's what we all get from it when you read it. I've seen many of you around. This is the first time I'm meeting some of you, but I've interacted with many of you at many levels, and I hope that once you read letters, you approach me and you tell me honestly what you think of it, because I really enjoy writing. You know, as Ken said, I was relatively confident that the book would do well because there's so many women who share my story and men who share my story. You know, there's some aspects of it that are, yes, distinctly Wendy, but a lot of it I think many of us can relate to. So I hope you enjoy it, and most importantly, I hope you do interface with me and let me know what you think. I really enjoy writing, so I hope this is the first of a few.
Hot boiler.
I promised my mom and my son's dad that it would not, the next one would emphatically not be autobiographical. but I do hope you enjoy it and you share with me, because I hope I have the opportunity to grow in this new profession of mine, writing. I thank you very, very much for coming this afternoon to share this time with me. As Chris says, there is a lot of wine, a lot of food out there, and if some of you have started reading letters already, now's a good time. Thank you very much for being with me this evening.